everyone, thanks for stopping by. This is Retro Fun Tech. So a little while back, I did an unboxing for this device here, the Atari Game Station Pro. Since that video, Atari came out with a firmware update. It adds and fixes some pretty cool things and now makes the Game Station Pro even better. So let's check it out. There are a ton of cool features on the Atari Game Station Pro console. The Bluetooth joysticks, the fact that this is an HDMI out console, the huge array of Atari games, arcade games, and other bonus games. But the one feature that I absolutely love, and it's a really big reason I got it, is the micro SD card slot. That little addition to this console has expanded the functionality of this console to a pretty happy place, the land of emulation. So before we get into the firmware update, let's just backtrack a little bit, and we will have a little overview of the device. So here are the tech specs of the device. It features over 200 officially licensed classic games. There are two 2.4 GHz joysticks with integrated paddles and have 3 sensitivity settings. Dynamic RGB lights with 3 glow modes, USB-C power, and like I said, HDMI out, HDMI connectivity. Just to show off the interface and the games, here's what you see when Atari loads on the console. Now the SD card slot function is pretty basic. First off, the only systems that the console can run are... But that's not surprising considering the specs of this console, and I'm not sure that you would want to play anything higher than those systems with these joysticks. As you can see, there isn't any sort of file system or folders on the SD card. It's pretty sloppy, but it works. The order that you load the games on the card is the order that you see them listed on here. So definitely not a console that you want to load your entire collection for each of the supported systems. Well, that was until now. Spoiler alert, the firmware update fixes that and some other stuff. Now to check what version of software you're running on your Game Station Pro, you want to go to the settings section and then go to the About. Here you can see what version you're running and if you do need to update to 1.3.0. So you will need a few things for the update. Obviously the console itself. You will need a sim tool, paperclip, or something that will help you press the reset button on the back of the console. You will also need a USB-A to USB-C cord, but not the one that comes with the GSP, because that is power only. So grab a phone cord or a cord that you know is able to transfer data. Now before we utilize those tools, let's download the firmware. I have the link to the firmware file to download in the description below. Click on that and it will take you to this page. Here you will see what is new on the firmware update, what bugs are fixed, and you get a few tech tips. Scroll down and you will find 4 easy steps to install the firmware. First, click on the link and download the update file. Once that is downloaded, extract the folder. Once you have extracted it with WinZip or 7-zip, open the folder on your computer. Now, if this is your first time updating the Game Station Pro, you will need to install the driver. In that folder, click on Driver. Open up the folder labeled Driver and click Install. If you get any pop-ups asking you for permission, click Yes that you want to install the files. Next, you should see the Driver Install Assistant. Click on Install Driver. When you get the pop-up that says you have installed the driver, click OK. Then you can close the previous assistant window. Now go back to the GSP software folder, and you want to click on number 2, the firmware updater. And then you guessed it, click on the firmware updater again. Click yes on any pop-ups like before, and then a new window, the Arcade Dev Tool interface, will pop up. Now here you will need to select the files that the Dev Tool is asking for. Click to the right space and it will bring up the File Explorer. Navigate back to the previous window and click on number 3, Firmware, and that will give you the files that you need. First click the loader file. Then click Open at the bottom. Next we are going to go back to the Dev Tool and click on the second blank space on the right to bring open the File Explorer again, so you can select the firmware image file. Now before you do anything else, grab the Game Station Pro console, the cord and the SIM tool. Connect the USB-C cord to the console in the 5-volt power spot and plug the USB-A portion into your computer. If the console turns on when you plug it in, hit the power button on the front of the console to turn it off. Once the console is off, grab your SIM tool and insert it into the reset button and push it until you hear a click. If you did it right, you will hear a cute noise from your computer. The Arcade Dev Tool changed from no devices found to this message here, found one mask ROM device. Remember, the console lights will stay off for the update, and now it's as easy as clicking the Run button on the Arcade Dev Tool. Then, in the right box of the Dev Tool, you will see the firmware update start, and watch its progress. This will take a few minutes. Once it's done, you will see this message, Download Image OK. Next, hit the power button on the GSP console, and you will hear it disconnect from your computer. The message on the Arcade Dev Tool will return to no devices found. Now, you're done! You can plug your Game Station Pro back into your TV and check out the awesome updates from the firmware. Just to confirm that the firmware actually loaded, you can go back into settings and the about, and you can see version 1.30. There's also a cool frequently asked questions section that you might want to check out. But you can see that the menu is different now. It's actually a little bit more simplified, so that's nice. Also, one of the things that the firmware fixed is the aspect ratio of the preloaded arcade games. Let's fire up Millipede again, since I was playing it earlier in the video. You can see that the aspect ratio is no longer stretched, and it's more vertical, so that's pretty cool. It doesn't necessarily load any extra games by any means, but that's what you get to do on your micro SD card. So let's check that out, because that's the big change. Now you can hit the reset button on the console, or you can hit the home and start button on the joystick and get into the SD card menu. Now, do you notice any changes? There are many changes, actually. First off is folders. You can see that all of the games I have set up into folders. It's super easy. And the other thing is, now this supports different systems. You can play Game Boy Color, you can play arcade games. It supports MAME and Final Burn Neo, and it also supports Super NES and Sega Master System. Now, just for anybody who is new to emulation out there, this is a normal screen for any MAME or Final Burn Neo arcade games. You can see that it eventually goes into the game. If you have any trouble booting that up, sometimes you may have to exit out of the game and then go back into the game. I frequently have to do that with Joust. Then your fine. It's like it caches it and then everything is good and you can go ahead and play forever and ever. Also, you can see my controller here is plugged in. This is a newer GameStation controller that I have and I frequently use. It didn't work with the Bluetooth adapter that is what I usually use on any of my consoles or my TV, but it does work with plugging it in. So you may have to fiddle around with whatever controller you have. Generally, you will need to plug it in and then you'll get the best results. I typically use an older style Xbox controller and it works just fine into the console. Speaking of controllers, I actually came across this on the Atari website, that if you are a hardcore Atari fan, you might actually want to pick this up. It is pretty cool. It looks like a newer style controller, but it's all decked out in Atari awesomeness. So it looks like it's also on sale. I am by no means endorsing this at all. I've never used it, but I just think it looks cool. So it might add to your Game Station Pro collection or just your actual collection. Now, another thing that I just wanted to point out, you do need to use zip files for your MAME or Final Burn arcade ROMs. The other thing is with the controller, you may have to go back and forth with the joystick, the Bluetooth joystick that's actually part of the Game Station Pro, and your other controller. I don't know if there's some sort of new software update that they're going to bring out that's going to fix that so that you don't have to fiddle with both controllers at the same time, but again, it's pretty cool that we even have this as an option, so I'm not super upset about it. I just think it's neat. And I'm super happy to see that Metal Black actually plays, except that it's weird. I had to play Fantasy Zone on the controller, but now I have to use the joystick on Metal Black. So you just have to go back and forth with arcade games. You may have to use a controller, you may have to use a joystick. I don't see any rhyme or reason for it, but again, hopefully there will be a software update that will fix that in the future. So what are your thoughts on the Atari Game Station Pro? Now that the firmware update is out and it streamlines the emulation portion a little bit better, and there's new systems that it actually supports, are you going to pick one up? It's only $100. It's actually available on Amazon or the Atari website. I will leave links in the description below. Let me know in the comments below. Also be sure to like, subscribe, and even share this video with someone who absolutely loves Atari just like me and needs some retro fun in their life. Thanks for watching. Stay awesome, everyone, and go play some games.